This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Sharp, and welcome to this edition of The Aware Show. We're glad to have you right there with us. On this program, we pay tribute to the many men and women who have served to protect our freedom, whether it was on the front lines of battle overseas or supporting their comrades here at home. We are grateful to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice and given their lives for America the Beautiful. And while we can celebrate those who wear their Purple Hearts proudly, everyone who serves in one way or another can be considered American heroes. We say thank you for your service. And on this program, Aware salutes you, our veterans. Here to give us a little perspective on this is George Young, who is a World War II veteran. We'll certainly be enjoying some of his stories in just a moment. We're also joined by Phil Duryea, a volunteer at the Pensacola Naval Aviation Museum. We also have Chad Mitchell. He is an Iraqi veteran and coordinator for the Pensacola State College Veteran Student Program. And last but certainly not least on this half of our program, we are joined by Eric Peterson, a veteran and student here at Pensacola State. And a little later in the program, we'll talk more about the programs that help our veterans and their families readjust to civilian life and welcome additional guests at that time. But for now, we want to thank those who are joining us on this half of the Aware program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you kindly.
And we are just going to start with you, saluting you, Mr. Young, a World War II veteran yourself, but you don't really consider yourself an American hero. Tell us why.
No.
Why not?
Well, you know, my duty in the Navy was back during World War II, and after a very short period of basic training at that time, only 6 weeks, I was assigned to a battleship, the USS New Mexico. And as you mentioned earlier, I am a tour guide currently at the Naval Aviation Museum. And you know, in asking me to relate facts and circumstances that far back, you're asking me to recall 65 years of, that's been a long time ago. In fact, in doing the tours at the museum, most of the guests on my tours, when I start discussing the history of World War II, they really think that's ancient history.
Wow.
Well, it really hasn't been that long ago. I guess as time does fly. But insofar as my duty on the New Mexico, it was, I don't know what specifically you would like to know from me in that regard.
I want to know why you don't consider yourself an American hero, serving in World War II 65 years ago.
Because there were so many real heroes.
Okay.
In fact, I meet so many of them in doing the tours at the Naval Aviation Museum. Just yesterday, I did a tour of the survivors of the USS Bismarck Sea, a ship that was sunk at the Iwo Jima conflict. And you should talk to some of those people if you want to talk to real heroes. Most of them awarded the Purple Heart. A lot of them were not even in attendance because they lost their lives at such a conflict as the Iwo Jima situation. And you know from your history, you know well about that conflict, how disastrous it was for so many. No, I'm certainly not a hero, and I would never put myself in that classification.
Okay, we certainly appreciate you for saying that too, Mr. Young. Mr. Duryea, you are a volunteer with the Pensacola
Volunteer
Naval
coordinator
Aviation.
for the National Museum of Naval Aviation.
Okay, and you're joining us. You're going to give us a little history here about a gem that we have here in Pensacola. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, I'm really proud to be associated with my fellow beings here, being veterans and so on. So thank you so much. And you too, George. But I've known George for many years. We've got 407 volunteers at the museum, and George and I become very good friends. What George won't tell you, and I'll speak on George's part of it, after he got out of the service, he wanted to go back to college, and he ended up that he became a professional magician.
Oh, come on.
He probably did some disappearing acts.
He can show you right now a couple that he's got in his pocket.
Okay.
But the big problem with what George was that he became a judge.
Wow.
And when one of the times, my wife and I are the volunteer coordinators for the museum. My wife was up at the front desk one time, and in come this gentleman, and he come up to the front desk, and he said, George was about to do a tour, and he come over and he said, "Is that Mr. Young, or that's Judge Young?" And my wife, very kindly said, "Can I go over and introduce you to him again?" He says, "No." He says, "I don't want to talk with him." So he won't tell me any other bits and pieces. But the museum itself is really growing. It's great. You want to go out and you want to see that. It's a lot of fun. Where there's 47 of us. I say us because I'm still a tour guide. And
I've been to the museum, not recently, but I've been there several times before in the past. Absolutely magnificent. And I think you have, you want to tell us a little about some of the attractions there and some of the new attractions you have.
Oh, the new attractions. Yeah, we're keying on Hangar Bay 1. What it's going to do is the immediate museum is 289,000 square feet upstairs and down. But what they've done is they've added this Hangar Bay 1, and that's 55,000 square feet. It'll when you walk in there to look up, it'll be close to 80 feet in height. And we're going to have the Vietnam era in there. We're going to have the Korean era. We're going to have the Coast Guard era. And there's a lot of things that are going to be hung on the wall. Now, to set those tours up in there, George and I are wicked. That's going to be busy, isn't it?
All right.
We'll talk about a little bit about that in just a moment too.
But wicked, it's again, wicked. There's a lot of things to see. We bring so many new items in. We just brought I can think. It's a Messerschmitt 262.
Okay.
And German. We said, what in the Lord do we want that in a naval museum for? Except it's the first jet.
Okay.
And literally, so it's brought in, and it's going to be amazing to put it in on the floor to talk about.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing it. Want to move on to you, Chad, joining us as well. You're a Iraqi veteran and also a student here, and you're also a coordinator for your program. Tell us a little bit about all of this.
I was in Afghanistan in 2006, Iraq 2008. Got asked this past summer to help stand up the Student Veterans Association for Pensacola State College. Still in the process of getting more membership in. We just got our charter approved through the school. We're working on our charter approval through the Student Veterans Association of America and trying to get a lot of eyes on in that and get more student participation.
And what is your role, or what is your program designed to do?
More or less be a voice for veterans that are having problems with issues, as well as help educate the staff and the faculty on dealing with veterans in the classroom, specifically like post-traumatic stress disorder, and how veterans have to play with that being in a classroom environment with people who don't know that environment or know the military type environment.
I'm so glad you have a program like that.
Transition.
That could be a very big help. And you are a student here and a veteran yourself as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us more about you, Mr. Peterson.
Well, being stationed in San Diego on the USS Boxer, I was in the Navy for 4 years, and I was kind of looking for an opportunity to go to college and pretty much have somebody pay for me to go to college.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Well, the Navy was a perfect opportunity for me, and what I learned out of the Navy was a pretty good work ethic, and I surrounded myself with the right people, and pretty much transitioned into a college atmosphere, which was right now. I mean, at first it was challenging, but when I came to the VUB program, that Mr. Gamo.
You'll be meeting him in just a moment in the second half of the show. Okay.
Yeah, he was on the phone. He was like, "Hey, come on by," you know. I was like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, I'm a veteran. You know, I might as well just get along with all the veterans here on the campus. Might as well, right?" So you know how veterans, whenever we see each other, it's all, you know, "Hey, how you doing?"
Family,
yeah. It's pretty much family. So I felt comfortable there, and which made the transition more, I guess, better.
Okay.
So.
You can relate to each other in
Exactly.
that regard. I can see that. All right. We'll talk more about these programs and your service as well. We want to get back to you, George, because you're too quiet and you have a lot to say. We're going to get it out of you. You have joined us with some pictures and some artifacts, and we want to get into that because that's a little bit of our history at the museum and a little bit of your history that you've lived. So let's talk about that, George. You
Okay.
served on the USS New Mexico.
Yes,
All
an
right.
old battleship.
Okay.
One commissioned in 1918.
Okay, we can get a picture of that.
And it was a battleship. Its total complement at the time I was aboard was 2,300 men. And in fact, it was in the Atlantic Fleet in World War I.
Wow, it is an old ship. It was an old ship.
Its first official duty was, in fact, escorting President Woodrow Wilson back from the Treaty of Versailles after the conclusion of World War I.
Okay.
After Pearl Harbor occurred, of course, it was in the Atlantic Fleet until Pearl Harbor. But when Pearl Harbor was attacked, it was then put through the Panama Canal and became a member of the Pacific Fleet. And from that point forward, participated in just about every major campaign in the Pacific, starting with the Aleutian Islands campaign, on through the Gilberts, the Marshalls, the Marianas, into the Philippines, and its last engagement, which was probably the most significant of all, was the Battle of Okinawa.
Okay.
And then, of course, at that time, we were all preparing for the initial occupation of Japan, and we all know why that became unnecessary.
We're looking at some other photos here as well. You want to tell us about that?
That is a photo of some of the battle damage obtained at Okinawa when we were hit with a A6M0, and they normally at that time carried 500-pound bombs aboard. Some, on occasion, had 1,000-pound bombs, but of course, we never knew. We just were accepting whatever was represented to us at the time.
That must have been frightening.
So, I'm sorry?
That must have been frightening.
Well, certainly it was frightening, but you're aboard ship and you
Got to deal with it.
Speaking of Okinawa, during the 69 days we were at Okinawa, we went to General Quarters, which is a general battle station, 84 times during that 69 days at Okinawa.
My goodness.
So yes, it was frightening because we learned pretty quickly of the devastating effect one of those kamikaze planes can have on a suicide dive. Very frightening. But you're there and you do what you're supposed to do.
Right. And there's some more pictures, I guess, we're showing of some
That's
of the
more
damage.
battle damage. Now, this particular scene is, this is distressing to a lot of people. But if you think about it, and particularly with the Navy, it's the only way really to handle a situation like this as it occurs. At the Battle of Okinawa, we had 177 casualties.
Okay.
55 of those 177 were killed.
And we're kind of pointing those out to you on the screen now.
And I'm pointing to all the ones that were killed were buried at sea.
Okay.
And that is something I've learned that some people have difficulty with, being able to accept that fact. But think about it, what else could you do? They were buried at sea, and normally the same night they were killed. Now this is a photo of us preparing the bodies for burial.
You're in this photo too.
Well, yes, but you could never find me.
Okay.
There's about 10,000 others in that same photo.
Okay.
I happened to be in there because I, at the time, was a quartermaster aboard the battleship, and one of my functions was laying the flags over the. Those were not exactly coffins; they were canvas body bags, weighted down with a 5-inch projectile.
Wow.
If you can follow that, 5-inch projectile, I would estimate, weighed about 50 pounds, and that, of course, carried the body bag with the deceased inside to the bottom.
I can understand now why you're saying that you don't consider yourself an American hero when you've had to stand on a ship and watch your comrades.
There's the American heroes.
Yeah, I understand. George, you have so many stories that you could tell us. If you could remember one thing that just really has stuck out with you through the years about your World War II experience, what would that be?
Oh, It would be very difficult in this time just to think quickly about. There were so many.
Okay. Yeah, when you talk about the kamikazes and suicide missions that they had, I mean, they didn't care about life, liberty, or anything. They were just on a mission to die. And when you're fighting that kind of war, that's a very tough one to win.
You're exactly right. And I'm sure you know of their theory that if they sacrificed their lives in behalf of the emperor, they would immediately be accepted into heaven. And they too, in fact, would become gods. That was their belief.
Right.
But there were so many memorable experiences in my years aboard the battleship. And in fact, it was the only ship I was on during the course of the entire war.
Okay.
I guess the most memorable will be when Truman elected to drop the atomic bomb. Now, I don't know of a more, that's one of the saddest developments in all of mankind, the history of dropping that atomic bomb. But what did it do? It brought the war to a hurry very quickly. It phased it out. It stopped the war. I don't know. I could think of many things, but it'd be hard to put one above the other.
I see.
Tell them about the cute thing you told the other day in the ready room where you got reprimanded.
Oh.
Truth be told now, George.
Well, that's really not even significant.
Yes, it is. It was fun. Everybody laughed.
Are you talking about the smoking lamp?
Yes.
Well, you know, aboard ship, when we're taking on ammunition, they have a time when they turn off the smoking lamp.
Okay.
That means no smoking is permitted aboard. That's when we're taking on ammunition. Well, I was new on the ship at that time. I had not really experienced turning on or off the smoking lamp. I knew what it was, of course, but I happened to be up on the bridge. I was a new recruit aboard ship, and I was up there painting the bridge, and they were taking aboard. Our main battery ammunition was 14-inch projectiles. Those are big pieces of ammunition. In fact, they're 1,400 pounds apiece.
Wow.
And it takes 750 pounds of gunpowder to fire one.
Goodness.
Well, that was going on way back on what we call our quarterdeck, our fantail. And I was up on the bridge, a good 400, 500, 600 yards away.
So you figured it was okay.
I was up on the bridge painting, enjoying the sunshine, smoking a cigarette. The captain, whom I had only met one time, came to his quarters, the captain's quarters, at sea on the navigation bridge, and that's where I was painting.
And
he
smoking.
happened to come up and he saw me. He says, "Sailor," he says, "you know the smoking lamp's out. Put yourself on report." Well, that scared me something terrible. I didn't know how to put myself on report. But I'm telling you, I found out quick.
I bet you did.
I was not about to not put myself on report.
I bet you weren't.
So I inquired of a young lieutenant that I'd become friends with, and he advised me what to do and to make it returnable for the executive's mast rather than the captain's mast. You may know what I'm referring to. That the executive's mast would be the easier way to handle it. That's what I did, and that would satisfy the orders of the captain, who says, "Sailor, put yourself on report." Well, when it was called up for hearing, they asked me, the hearing officer, "Who put you on report?" I said, "I did, sir." Well, the hearing went no further. That sort of broke everybody up.
I bet it did.
And I told him what happened, and that was the end of it. He did something with his gavel and says goodbye. Well,
it's a good thing you put yourself on report.
That's a good thing I did. But anyway, that was a very insignificant thing that happened, but it's very memorable.
Right.
I will always remember a captain of the United States Navy.
I bet you won't forget.
Because that was my first experience in meeting one.
Oh.
And we've got a lot of captains that work with us as volunteers at the Naval Aviation Museum.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I want to move to any of your experiences, Chad, that you may have had that were memorable in your service in Afghan and also in Iraq.
I guess Afghanistan, the thing that comes most frequently to my mind is we were flying in from Bagram to Kandahar. I was stationed at Kandahar for about 3 months in 2006, and it's a pretty large airfield, but they were taking oncoming munitions at the time, and we were in a little bitty C-130. You know, we have our rucksacks are in our lap because they can't fit behind us. We have on our full battle rattle Kevlar, all of our stuff, weapons in our lap. We also have our duffel bags next to us because it's all the gear that we're going to use while we're there. And everybody's crunched in there like as much as you can, and the plane's moving around and you fall, and like people are falling off because it's actually netted seats as opposed to actual seats. And the pilot comes on the radio and is like, we're going to get a little bit bumpy here because we have to, I forget what they called it, but when they land, they come straight up and they go up more than a 45-degree angle towards the landing strip to not get shot at, and then they pull up right before they land, and there's no windows, and that was probably one of the most scariest things in my life. And I thought, you know, stepping off the plane, taking rounds would be scary, but when the plane started tilting down, my heart started thumping pretty bad.
Yeah.
That was probably the most memorable of
That would have been
Afghanistan.
memorable too. That's
Yeah.
not the kind of ride you want to take. You talk about amusement rides, but that one right there must have been something else.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Talk about your stomach going to the top of your head. That
Definitely
was-
so.
Wow. And with the Navy, I don't know, Eric. I don't want to miss if you have some moment or something when you served in the military that you want to share.
Well, I had a couple of moments. I never really was on the battlefield, you know. Being on the Navy, you're on the ship the whole time. But I remember we used to carry Marines on my ship, and, you know, there'll only be like, 2,000 of us and like 3,000 of them. So whenever they came on board, they kind of like just took over the ship. You know, they'll take over the gym and everything. Well, we went over to Iraq and pretty much dropped them off. But my job was to pretty much guide the trucks and the I want to say like the hovercrafts.
Okay.
We call them LCACs, but we do that for like 72 hours straight, and we'll probably get like a maybe 2-hour nap in between each shift. But yeah, we won't stop until all of them are gone off the ship, and that was to me a memorable event right there. And also, as far as humanitarian missions, we've done that too. As far as going down to South America, I mean Central America too. We've rebuilt churches and painted campuses down there. It was a beautiful thing. Yeah.
That's all right. That's good. Coming back to you, Phil, I want to talk a little bit about the volunteers and what you all do with the museum. Thank you for what you do and all the knowledge and information that you all share with people who do go to the museums. You've brought something here, and I want you to get an opportunity to tell us about some of the artifacts that you'll see when you go.
Well, what I've done is brought a few things from the museum. And one of the neat pieces, which it's not a very rare piece, and that's your, I'll say your quartermaster. I'm probably straight up.
Yes.
That's okay?
Yes, I think.
And this is D-Day coming in.
Okay.
And with this, the quartermaster has to bring this, everybody on this LSO and so on, into Utah Beach but the secret coding was bigot on this.
Okay.
And this was
That was top secret information.
Top secret, and then what they did on the backside is see they've shown like at the depths of the water and so on. And again, on this side, you can see the houses that they spotted out.
Okay, and that's there at the museum. All right. Let's talk about this item that you have here.
The item in the case, like there's some of the autographs of some of the great generals and admirals and so on. You got Admiral Nimitz.
If we can.
You got Patton in there. Also in the right over in the corner, right to the lower left shoulder of Admiral Nimitz is a signed document that it's got President Roosevelt on it, and also Winston Churchill.
Okay.
Which we're pretty proud of.
Absolutely.
And look at this represents the side cap represents the AVG, the American Volunteer Group.
Okay.
And 50% of them were Marines and Navy. And
That looks like Eric's. Eric's hand. No, just messing with you, Eric. Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, not a
interrupt
bit, not a bit. No,
Okay.
so this is what we've got a P40 that's in the museum, and we tell a great story on that, don't we, George?
Yes, we do.
It probably look good on me anyway.
Would you permit me to say something about Phil Duryea?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
He has been identified as the coordinator of the volunteers at the museum. He has
Okay.
stated that we have over 400 in the organization.
Okay.
We're all volunteers, including Phil Duryea.
Okay.
And also his wife, Maureen Duryea. Now, I just can't say enough about those two, Phil and Maureen Duryea. They have been volunteers at the museum, and this man has accumulated over 12,000 hours purely as a volunteer at the
Wow,
museum.
that's wonderful.
It is 12,000, isn't it, or more?
Closer to 14 now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. It's over 13,000 hours.
That's a lot of volunteer
at
hours.
the museum, and all volunteer.
Right.
And
And you too. I mean, you've given to your country,
Well,
and now here you are giving of your time
but
some
I'm
more.
working as a volunteer. If you can say that, you
Right,
work for somebody.
absolutely.
I work for
You
Phil
could,
Duryea.
you could use some more volunteers too.
Oh,
no?
absolutely.
Tell us
It's a
about that.
lot of fun. It just is. You come in, and we had 5 or 6 new volunteers that come in this particular week, and we've got so many different programs. Even we've developed a greeter program. Come in from the front entrance in the museum. How are you? Welcome to the largest naval museum in the United States.
That's wonderful.
And
how many people do you estimate would come through the Pensacola Naval
in
Aviation Museum?
2009, we had a little over 800,000 people,
That's a lot of people.
and it's a lot of fun.
That's a lot of work for volunteers.
I mean, look at George says you get a lot of interesting people. Yesterday we had took around the undersecretary of the Homeland Security, and Mr. Schaefer.
Okay.
And so it's a lot of fun.
Very good. I want to ask you, George Young, our veteran, World War II, how would you like to be remembered? As many of our veterans, Korean War, World War II veterans, that sort of thing,
How
up
would
in
I
age
like
now.
to be remembered?
Yes.
Oh, how do you answer that?
Well, I could tell you.
Should I let him tell me?
If you want to,
No.
you should have been a comedian.
Best volunteer in the world.
Yes, that's a good way.
Let me say, he mentioned that I was a judge in Birmingham. After my service in the Navy, I did go to law school and become a lawyer. In 2006, I was awarded by the Alabama Bar Association my 50-year certificate for 50 years of continuous practice of law. Now, I did that to make a living, but now I've been working at this museum for nearly 10 years. It'll be 10 years in April, and I wish I could have enjoyed my practice, my profession that I made a living at, as much as I enjoy working at this museum for nothing.
Now that says a lot.
That's good,
Now,
George.
that's
good.
That says a lot.
And I mean that sincerely.
Right.
I've never enjoyed anything more than being a tour guide at the Naval Aviation Museum here in Pensacola.
That's
and I
wonderful.
mean that sincerely.
And you've had an opportunity to meet a lot of
people.
fellow veterans and
A lot of
people who have
people.
come through and that sort of thing.
But I've enjoyed my friendship and knowing Phil Duryea
Mm-hmm.
as much as with any.
Yeah, we've got a good family, haven't we?
We do.
Phil, if someone wants more information about volunteering, I know we can share that.
Oh,
at the
gosh,
end of the show.
call our office. Let me give you our phone number. It's 850-452-3604, extension 3138.
Okay, and I also have George. You just gave me the information. We'll show at the end of the program a bulletin board if someone wants more information about volunteering.
We've got it makes no difference whether you're military or not. We've got everybody that's come in. We've got from, I don't know, we've got whiskey salesman, one, and right on up through.
And there you go. Volunteers, Naval Aviation Museum. If you're interested, you can
There,
contact Phil Duryea.
thank you.
There you go. 850-452-3604 is the number to call. If we have some time at the end of the show, Phil will show that once again. We
Good.
certainly want to thank you all for doing what you do at the museum. Chad, do you want to share any additional information on behalf of Pensacola State College and the program that you have here for our veterans?
Just as many veterans that go to the campus here, not necessarily just our campus, but just in the Pensacola area or in any area, to contact your local vet centers and see if there's a Student Veterans Association, and see if you can get involved, or at least get the information, so that way you know what entitlements and benefits you're entitled to be a successful student veteran in the civilian sector.
And we have something here in Pensacola that others don't even have in the state of Florida. And Gary Gamos will be joining us in just a moment. Will be here to tell us a little bit about that program also offered here on the campus of the college. I want to thank you for that information. And as far as you being a student, I think it's absolutely wonderful, both of you, for going back to school, as well as our very own George Young. Being an inspiration to other veterans who are contemplating going back to school and who may be even contemplating going into the military to get benefits to go to school. What would you say to that, Eric?
Well, I'd say the most important thing is to actually know what you're going to do before you get out. That transition out of the military to the civilian sector is like a make you or break you kind of deal. And like when I came across the Veterans Upward Bound program, I didn't really realize, like, cause it's just like a pamphlet just sitting there. You know, it's not like, hey, you know, come see Veterans Upward Bound. No, it's just it's a pamphlet sitting there, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I talk to some other veterans, I can get a better understanding of what's going on around campus, and possibly get some help, and where it's gonna lead me, as far as education wise.
Okay, very good. All right, in just a moment, we are going to be joined by the gentleman who heads the Veterans Upward Bound program, Mr. Gary Gamos. He will be here to tell you more about that if you're interested. We'll also talk with a representative from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and also we are joined by a gentleman with the Vet Center here in Pensacola. So don't go away. We'll be right back with that after this. But right now, thank you all for joining us.
Well, thank you, Dee Dee.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, back in a moment.
WSRE's van has been wrapped with many of the favorite PBS characters that kids of all ages have come to know and love. This van is used by WSRE's production crew and can be seen at schools and community events. You may even see it when you're driving around the Gulf Coast region. It's a moving billboard for WSRE and a reminder that we're more than just TV. WSRE is your partner in education, helping our kids learn and grow. We're raising readers.
All right, welcome back to the Aware Show. I'm Dee Dee Sharp. Glad you stuck around. Well, we're on this edition of the program, Saluting Our Veterans. And joining us now in our studio to talk about some of the issues facing those who have protected and served our nation, and to tell us a little bit about some of the programs that actually help to address some of these concerns, are our guests for the second half of our program. We are joined by Ron Unieri, Pensacola Veterans Center. We also have Mr. Jerron Barnett, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And last but certainly not least, from right here at home, Gary Gamos, Veterans Upward Bound program here on the campus of Pensacola State College. Thank you all for taking the time and joining us for the Aware program. We have actually 2 Navy veterans and an Air Force veteran, we understand. I'm going to talk about some of your programs, but just first of all, thank you for your service, and want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little about maybe some of your memories in serving, maybe 1 or 2 that you might want to share with us here on the Aware program. We'll start with you, Mr. Unieri.
I can tell you basic training was a big awakening for me.
Okay.
I went from Hawaii to Orlando, Honolulu, Hawaii to Orlando. And I got into Orlando and it was 17 degrees. And I was like, wait a minute, this is Florida?
Orlando, Florida?
They had the worst freeze of the winter. I thought they sent me somewhere else.
We were like, welcome.
This cannot
Old
be Florida.
Midwinter was there. Welcome
Florida
again.
cannot be 17 degrees.
Wow.
It was a culture shock too.
Okay. That's your memory
That
of
was
how
the
cold
first
it was in
one.
the state of Florida. That's a unique thing too, because usually down in that area, you're right, 17 degrees. That's a wake-up call for you. What about you, Jerron?
Oh, I second that emotion. Without a doubt, it was my first experience at basic training. When I came face to face with my TI, my training instructor, she was a female, and she was very mean. And she let me know very quickly that she was in charge, and there was no wiggle room and there was no discussion. She was going to direct us. And flash forward many years after that, stationed here at Eglin Air Force Base, when I was still on active duty, I saw her in the Herbert Field Commissary. And that had been 8 or 9 years later, and I thought it was a nightmare all over again. But this time around, she was much nicer. But she instantly remembered me. I instantly remembered her, and that was a pleasurable experience. But the first time I met her, it was not.
You're like,
So,
oh my goodness, I'm in the Air Force now.
yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And Gary, what about your memory that you have in the Navy?
Well, Dee Dee, I started out an educator at a college, was a teacher for 5 years, and I ended up an educator here at Pensacola State. And in between, I spent a lot of years with Navy, a career with Navy, and loved chasing the adventure with ships. I chased Yasser Arafat around with the PLO in Beirut. Then we went over to Iran during the Iranian crisis. We had a lot of great travel. But the one I remembered was taking a set of orders to Guam, because the story for Guam was you go out there to scuba dive and golf, it's peaceful, you're 14 time zones ahead of Washington, D.C. and your boss, and you'll live a great life. So I went out to Guam to be the executive officer of the Naval Supply Depot. And Mount Pinatubo erupted in the Philippines, and there was enough ash and commotion out of all that. It closed the largest supply depot in the Pacific at Subic Bay, the Air Force Base at Clark Air Base, and we were the smallest depot in the Pacific out of 3. And as that catastrophe took place, Desert Shield fired up. And we sent 4 carrier battle groups out to the Gulf, and we're chasing the Iraqis around and making a little noise there. All of a sudden, we had to supply 4 carrier battle groups, and we lost our biggest supply depot. So we absorbed Subic Bay, and we were building what were essentially big tents, very rapid warehouses to house all this, shipping it all in. Meanwhile, we pulled the trigger, and now it's a hot war, and we're supporting under fire troops that come into the area. And it was a very busy time, as you can imagine, 24 hours a day. Then the Air Force got in the act, and we had to send ordnance over, so we brought big military sea lift commands, huge ships, massive ships, 24 hours a day, all night, loading bombs and ordnance on the ships, sending the, I mean, it was commotion, it never ended. Well, that goes on for a couple of years. And at the end of that came 1992, which was probably the worst typhoon season in the Pacific. It was an El Nino year.
Oh my goodness.
And we had 6 typhoons come over Guam. The first one, Omar, was a direct hit. I had a house that I bought on a cliff overlooking the ocean. You know, this is part of the Gulf scene. We're going to have a little fun. Blew that house away. There was all the churn associated with 6 consecutive typhoons, and then I transferred and left for Hawaii. Well, I never got that round to golf. You know, it was a very different tour than I had imagined it would be on Guam. But I look back at it fondly, and I still love the place.
That's
Great
wonderful.
life.
Maybe you'll get a chance to go back to Guam and get that round of golf in. Thank you for your stories. I want to talk a little bit about some of the programs that you're working on now. It's great that we have veterans that are doing these programs, because you understand the men and women who are coming to you and their stories and that sort of thing. And Ron, I know that at the Vet Center you hear quite many stories, and you're able to help a lot. Tell us what you do there.
At the Vet Center, we are part of the VA. We're just a readjustment counseling center for mainly veterans that have deployed to a combat zone and their family members. We do a lot of individual and group counseling. We're starting a new program called SAFE for family members only. SAFE, the acronym is Support and Family Education. To give the family members, whether spouses, mom, dad, sister, brother, some education about some of the things that our veterans are going through when they come back from a war zone.
So it's readjustment?
It's all readjustment. Okay. Everything we do at the Vet Center is all emotional, psychological. Our main thing is post-traumatic stress, combat stress. They called it shell shock in World War II, soldier's heart, and of course right now it's PTSD. You know, we got a lot of veterans that have done multiple tours. You know, we've been at war for 9 years on 2 different fronts. And the military culture, you know, you don't want to say, I'm going to go talk to Doc, I have an issue. You stuff it. You go on with the mission. You complete the mission. You complete the deployment. You come back. You try and wind down. But, you know, as soon as your boots hit ground home, you're back on the rotation. You know, I go to Herbert Field, and I've talked to some of these special ops airmen. Some of them have done 7, 8, 9 deployments.
Goodness.
So
that's hard on somebody to do that many deployments. Not only are you away from your family, but then the service that you're providing, it's got to be very difficult. What are you hearing from them?
A lot of it's, you know, they don't want to deal with right now.
Okay.
Especially if you know, you're going to make a military your career. You know, the military is trying to downplay and get help to these guys, but the culture is really not to show weakness.
Okay.
You know, the military, especially in a war zone, you got to show aggression. You know, the military teaches you to be strong,
Right.
to be, you know, a force on the battlefield. So, you know, you get that instilled in you. And to say, you know, man, I'm not having,
I'm not strong. I'm not
can't-
strong anymore. I
right.
can't do it anymore. It's hard
And
for them to say that and really
it's-
probably even admit, you know, something like that to themselves.
And the stigma is out there.
Right.
And, you know, whether we can get the stigma squashed, I don't know.
Okay.
You know, you send somebody over 9 times and you bounce them back and forth between Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq. You know, you throw in Central America in between. You throw, you know, Kosovo's still hot. So, you know, all these deployments, they're having a big toll on all our military and
so
their
you
family
offer
members.
programs and things to help.
Right.
And some of the programs are specific to individuals and what they need.
Individuals, families, you know, the vet centers have always been family friendly because the family members are the first ones to see some of these issues. You know, to see the hyperactivity, to see the anxiety, the hyper awareness, the jumpiness, the short fuse. You know, when you send somebody off to war, they don't come back the same person. Whether, you know, you're taking fire every day, whether you're in a support role, and the family members change too.
Okay.
You know, the family members take on different roles. So they come back 13 months later, 15 months later, and try and reintegrate. That's one of the programs we also do.
Oh, that's good.
Try to get them back together. We do a lot of family counseling, couples counseling, marital counseling, and of course individual counseling. You know, some of them, you know, they don't want to get help. You know, I can deal with this. You know, I survived Baghdad. I survived Fallujah.
So they're
You
in
know,
denial.
And, you know, it's going to take time.
Okay.
You know, when they're ready to come in, we're going to be there.
Gotcha. Ron, Jerron, you see so much as well at the clinic in public relations and that kind of thing. You all do a lot, suicide rate with our veterans and that sort of thing, just kind of piggybacking on some of the things that Ron is saying. It can get to that point where we've lost a lot of our veterans across the nation and here at home to suicide. They're not doing well with dealing with this. Part of it's getting past denial and accepting that they do have issues, but understanding that there's help.
Absolutely. And being in the academic environment, probably the most known benefit that the VA provides is the GI Bill, you know, around the campus here on Pensacola State College. But easily the most visible benefit that the VA provides is health care. And that's what I'm here to represent today. Here in the VA Gulf Coast Veterans Healthcare System, we operate 5 main facilities. The hospitals in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then we have outpatient clinics in Mobile. There's a large facility here in Pensacola. We operate one in Eglin Air Force Base, and way out in Bay County to the east, we have one in Panama City. And you know, when veterans and active duty military come back, you know, they sustain injuries that are both visible and invisible. And what I mean by that is, you have, you know, anybody can recognize a veteran who's lost an arm or a leg, but the invisible injuries are those that are the mental health variety. And that we have a number of services to address the needs of both of those kinds of injuries in our outpatient clinics as well as our inpatient hospital in Biloxi.
Okay, very good. And Gary, we certainly want to get you involved here because you have a very unique opportunity that we offer our veterans here on the campus of Pensacola State College. Tell us about that, the Upward Bound program for our veterans.
We're very proud of it, and thank you. Yes, I'm the director of Veterans Upward Bound, which is a program not many people have heard about because it is the only one in the state of Florida There are 48 chapters around the United States, and it's funded by the U.S. Department of Education. Most veterans hear about the Veterans Affairs benefits and have heard about the GI Bill. This is one they generally don't hear about because it's only in a few selected communities, and we're very fortunate in Pensacola to have it, in part because we're a high veteran. About 19–20% of our adult population are veterans, and we're a low income relative to the rest of the community. We're high unemployment. So this provides a way to beat that through education, and there's no better way to beat unemployment and poverty than education. This program is funded for a specific subset of our veterans. We have on the campus of Pensacola State College over 1,000 veterans, maybe 1,100 roughly. We have roughly 150 to 200 of them involved in Veterans Upper Bound. The program is part of the TRIO family of programs offered by DOE that starts in middle school and works all the way through graduate school to take children of poverty and keep them in school, to help those that have a talent that shows and an interest to stay in school and not drop out. If you take the rules they follow, which are first-generation college student and low income. First generation meaning their parents or whoever raised that person did not have a four-year baccalaureate college degree, and low income, which speaks for itself, get this additional benefit. When we get into the adult families in the Veterans Upper Bound program, we add to that requirement that they be a veteran with at least 6 months of service or a medical discharge if they're injured on the job in the military, and they are residents of Escambia or Santa Rosa County. So this would be local veterans, and we can't reach outside of our local area, so this is very much a Pensacola area benefit, and the community should be very proud of what that offers. What we do for the veteran is we bring them into the Veteran Society of Veterans Upper Bound, and I want to emphasize that may be our #1 benefit. Studies have shown that if a veteran comes back to college and doesn't feel like he or she belongs, can't find a common ground, those 18-year-old kids I don't have anything in common with them, or I don't belong here, or I miss home, whatever it may be, then we lose them. And in one VA study, they found that 60% of all veterans who came back on the GI Bill were gone after the first year. That's a 60% dropout rate.
That's pretty big.
It's pretty big. Mm-hmm. And they try to get inside that and try to determine what are the main causes and what are the factors. And one of them was just that. They were used to the camaraderie of their fellow veterans. They had a purpose, they had a mission, they belonged, and they had a schedule. They loved the military life, or at least they had adapted to that military life, and they didn't have that foundation in college. What we give is restoring that foundation, a veterans group which is supportive. Veterans hold each other up, and a veteran has a bad day, he's got a buddy there to hold him up and get him there to class and care about him. Our classes are for only veterans. We don't mix with the general student population in the classroom. We do outside the classroom. But in a math class for us, it would be only other veterans in that math class with a college professor, small classes, 5 to 15 students, something of that sort. And unlike college, where you have so many students get an A, so many get a B, so many are going to get the bottom end of the grades, and you fight for your grade and it goes on your record forever, ours is more of a nurturing environment. It's a safe environment, in that there is a grade, but it's between the instructor and the student. And it's a very helpful type of environment where the students help each other rather than compete with each other for the grade.
And I know Eric Peterson, who joined us in the first half of our program, and I believe Chad Mitchell were part of your Upward Bound program.
Yeah.
Fine individuals.
They certainly are. In fact, we're real proud to say that about 7 to 8 of our students every semester are on the President's List or the Dean's List. The President's List being 4.0 grade point average, and the Dean's List 3.75. We have a great many successes that come out of it. Everybody achieves at their own level, but I think everybody benefits from the program, and everybody does more than they ever could have without the program.
Okay. Let's talk about just a few of the issues that our veterans face. I know we talked about some of the medical things, and we're talking about some educational things here, but many of our veterans are homeless, and it's just a sad day when they serve their country and that sort of thing, and they end up like this. But can we talk about maybe some of the programs or things that can help? I know education can help to prevent this and or to offer support right now for them.
Most of the homeless programs fall under Geron's.
Okay, Geron.
We do a lot of referrals to the homeless coordinators.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yes, some of the main programs that we provide through the outpatient clinics are access to permanent and temporary housing, as well as referral to job services to help them get back on their feet. We have substance abuse programs. We found through research and studies over the years that substance abuse plays a big part in why veterans are homeless. So we have programs and counselors set aside to get them on the right track in that regard. But we also do a big collaborative effort with the communities in each one of our sites. It's called a Homeless Veterans Stand Down, where we bring all the parties together that support homeless veterans and homeless, general homeless, and it's just a smorgasbord of services that are provided to all veterans and all homeless, just to gain access to the support services that are within any given community. So those are some of the main things that we do, and of course, primary care and mental health care is something we do every day out of our facilities.
And people need to know too that by the time they come to the VA clinic and that sort of thing, this is for some of our indigent veterans who are not able to have benefits and that sort of medical benefits of someone who might be working. So that of course we know that's there. I want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that with our veterans, that they need to know that even before they get out, that there are programs designed to help them make the transition from military life back to civilian life. Tell us about that.
There's a lot of programs that DOD have it's on all the active duty bases. They go through transition assistance programs, trying to get them set up to get out of the military. How to write a resume, how to convert your military job to a civilian job. There is a lot of programs.
What would they need to do? They know they're coming out, and either of you can jump in. They know they're coming out. There's some steps and things that maybe they can be taking, to make it a little bit
I would say wherever they're going to settle down, whether it's Pensacola, Mobile, Birmingham, get to the nearest VA, whether it's a vet center.
And start talking before
clinic,
they come out.
Just the website is there. The va.gov website has tons of information.
Okay.
The GI Bill is huge. All the veterans getting out, they know the GI Bill is going to be there. It's a great program. But the health care, some of them, they're younger, they're healthier. I don't need the health care. You know what? You do need the health care. Get enrolled. It's an entitlement. They serve the country. The VA's there not just for the education part, but for health care and dental. And, some counseling if they need it.
And you don't have to be strong anymore. You've been strong for your country. Now you be strong for yourself and your families and get the help that may be out there, whether it's mental or health-wise, because we want you to be around to enjoy some of the freedoms that you're fighting for us for. So I absolutely want to get that going. Gary, I want to talk a little bit more about the Upward Bound program because you've had so many success stories. Veterans who come may or may not have the educational background as they went in as enlisted servicemen and women, but thankfully with this program, a unique one of its kind here in the state of Florida, you're able to work with them and help them become even better students. You're talking about how some of them end up on the dean's list, the president's list.
What's fun is the three of us all work with the same people with different parts of the support puzzle, and it's a total system of support. One thing that's unique about our program, the VA programs all expire at some point for education. The GI Bill, the previous Montgomery GI Bill had a 10-year life. When you leave the service, you have 10 years to use it or lose it. The new post 9/11 GI Bill has a 15-year shelf life. Our program is a lifelong program. And so many of our veterans who come back are veterans of the Vietnam era. We even have 2 veterans from World War II. It's a great diversity of veterans, and we're older than the average veterans program on that concept. Our average age is 43.
Okay.
And so a lot of our veterans are coming back after having some mid-career change. If they're working in a physically demanding job and their bodies can no longer hold up to hanging drywall or driving nails, they need to retrain, because in the end your mind is the only thing that you can take into retirement. Your body's going to age and is going to fail. So we have a high percentage of our veterans come back later in life. So we did see 2 GI Bill veterans who had just recently left the service, and they are part of our program and a very important part of our program. But put a picture on our group of an average age of 43 and you get a better feeling for who we are. The other thing I think that is really critical is in the adjustment of your life from the service at any stage of life, who you run with. If you fall in with the wrong group of people, and whether it's veterans or not, you're going to do what they do and they're going to take you down the path that they're going down themselves. And that may be a path that's going to nowhere. On the campus, we've got college kids who have a dream, who have goals, and we try to promote those goals and support it, and we're cheerleaders to it. And the group is going somewhere. So if you come in with this group, you're moving with them in the right direction. And that's a terribly important part of the success of the program. People get enthusiastic about it, they enjoy it. In 2 weeks, we're going to the University of Florida, the University of Central Florida, and the Kennedy Space Center for a weekend of checking out. How cool is that?
That's wonderful.
And thank you to the Department of Education for funding that. We go to cultural events, we go to the arts, we go to theater, we canoed down the Blackwater River, we went to the Pelicans baseball games. We do fun things, historic things, and we do workshops where we learn study skills and the survival skills of a college student, other things beyond just the classroom. And that creates the camaraderie and the warm friendship that replaces what they knew in the service. There's nothing scarier than a veteran who's all alone, has no support group, and left with a quiet night. Ron, you'll probably remember this one, I'm sure. Our old story on the ship was nothing good ever happened to a sailor after midnight. You know, and we try to give that sailor someplace good to be in their new life. And it's a whole picture. It's more than the classroom, and the success rate is tremendous.
Sounds like a whole nother life experience that you all provide, not just an education, but something applicable to life, period. That's wonderful, Gary. I want to give each of you an opportunity as we get ready to wrap up the program, as we start alluding our veterans here on the AWARE program. Ron, maybe some additional information people need to know about the Vet Center and what you do and what they can get there if they come there, families and our veterans alike.
You know, a lot of veterans will come to the Vet Center to just get information. We have that information, whether they need our services or not. We know all the community resources. The VA can't provide everything.
Okay.
So we know the food banks. We know where they can go to get services outside of the VA. You know, if they have a question, call the Vet Center. They might need our services, they might not, and we'll get them the answers they need. A lot of veterans use us as a link to the other programs in the area.
All right, we'll be providing that information for you in just a few minutes here at the end of AWARE as we're winding down now. Ron, want to give you an opportunity on behalf of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to make some closing comments as well.
Well, absolutely. Here in the Pensacola area specifically, we operate the Joint Ambulatory Care Center, which is a 205,000 square foot facility that we share with the U.S. Navy medical personnel in the area, right next to the Navy Hospital on Highway 98 West. And there's eligibility and enrollment requirements that are kind of complex, and we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about that. But the best thing that veterans can do if they're seeking VA health care is to bring their discharge form, DD-214, and come and see us.
Okay, thank you very much. And Gary Gamo, thank you so much for being here with the Upward Bound program on the campus of Pensacola State College. Closing remarks that you have for us.
Thank you. We are greatly appreciative of Dr. Ed Meadows, the president of the college. We are a federal program. We are not necessarily Pensacola State College, but we reside on Pensacola State College, who's the host. And they went after the federal grant. They competed for it on a nationwide basis, won it. Dr. Meadows driving that, bringing it to the campus. And now he's given us a veterans lounge that we're putting together as we speak right now. Yay! So the veterans will have a place on campus. And this brand new veterans organization, the Student Veterans of America.
Okay, very much. Thank you all. Want to share some information with you now with some of the bulletin boards to give you the information that you need here on the AWARE Show. Volunteers, Naval Aviation Museum, there's a number that you can call for that. We also have additional information for our veterans from some more bulletin boards that we would like to show you as well here at the end of the program. And if you need any additional information, then please do contact the numbers and the people that you see here on our screen as always. And again, thank you to Dr. Meadows here on the campus of Pensacola State College for offering the Upward Bound program a spot here. Thank all of you for being here on our program. You've heard just a very small fraction of the stories from some of our American heroes, we want to call them. We want to thank our guests for taking the time to help celebrate our veterans. But most of all, we here on the AWARE Show invite you to thank our veterans as well as our active duty servicemen and women. We also want to remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice and laid down their lives in the line of duty to their country. We thank you to the families who have supported your loved ones near and far. For all of us here at WSRE, PBS for the Gulf Coast, and the AWARE program, we salute you. I'm Dee Dee Sharp. Until next time, stay informed and stay aware.